If I abandon this project, I would be a man without dreams, and I don't want to live like that. I live my life, or I end my life with this project. My belief is that all these dreams are yours as well. And the only distinction between me and you is that I can articulate them.
Anyone who labels himself an adventurer today is a disgrace. I have never done anything adventurous for the sake of a film. There's a myth that I purposely make things more difficult for myself. It's the wrongest of wrongs. I would rather have made Fitzcarraldo in the middle of Central Park, the only problem being there's no jungle in the neighborhood. I would have directed the film from an apartment window on Fifth Avenue, just as a few years later I would rather have made Scream of Stone in Munich, where I could have slept in my own bed. Mountaineers might be motivated to seek out the most difficult routes, but not me. I would never have finished a single film if I purposely sought out trouble. Filmmaking is difficult enough, and it's plain bad luck I'm drawn to characters like Fitzcarraldo, whose mission is to pull a boat over a mountain. I never seek adventure. I'm not irresponsible about things. I just do my job. There is a difference between exploration and adventure. I'm a curious person, forever searching for new images in dignified places, but though often given the contemptible tag of adventurer, I categorically deny the label. It applies only to men and women of earlier times, like the medieval knights who traveled into the unknown. The concept has degenerated since then, and today it is an ugly, pitiful embarrassment. Local mountain people like the Sherpas, the Baltis, and the Swiss traditionally never climbed the peaks that surrounded them, thus robbing them of all dignity. They left the splendor of the mountains intact. There is a foul philosophy behind those bored English gentlemen who started climbing for the sake of it, then scampering off to make sure they were the first at the South Pole. There's nothing that interesting about the place. It's just water and drifting ice. The whole thing suggests dead fish, white, rotten, bloated, belly up, floating in dirty water. And since then, the self-promoters have run the show. Modern-day adventurers speak about their travels in military terms like, "We conquered the summit," or "We returned victorious over Mount Everest." I can't stand such talk. What a big shot you were in 1910 when you came back from Africa and told the ladies how many elephants you'd killed. Do the same thing at a party today and you'll have a glass of champagne tossed in your face.
Francois Truffaut called my next guest the greatest filmmaker alive today. His most recent film, Fitzcarraldo, has just won the Best Director Award at the Cannes Film Festival. We're delighted that he could be with us tonight for his first talk show appearance ever. Welcome, please, Werner Herzog.
Welcome to Adventure in Art. My name is Ben Staley, your resident talking head. Today, I'm talking about Werner Herzog. You know, I had to do a little research because some people pronounce Werner and some people say Werner. I actually think that's the correct German pronunciation, but I could be wrong and probably only Werner knows. I'm going to pronounce it Werner because I think it sounds cool, but maybe I'm wrong, and if I am, I'm sorry in advance. Who is Werner Herzog? You either know or you don't, and if you do know, the purpose of this video, scratch that, if you don't know, the purpose of this video is to urge you to seek out more information on Werner Herzog. Seek out his films, seek out his conversations, seek out his writings and his interviews. There's a wealth of free material on YouTube. I've gone down rabbit holes and watched hours of lectures and interviews with Werner on YouTube. Suggest you do it. Some of his films are available there. You can also find his films on all the different streamers, depending on which ones they are. I've seen most of his modern films, but not all of them. You know, he's referenced in this this interview that I just read from, referenced Fitzcarraldo. That's probably the film that made him most famous, and it is kind of an iconic film for him to this day. But you know, that was made, shoot, almost 50 years ago or 45 years ago or something. And yes, it's about a guy trying to drag a steamship over a mountain in the Amazon jungle. And you know what? He actually did it for the movie. There's a whole behind the scenes making of film about the making of the film, and I suggest you watch both of them. I only saw them for the first time this last winter when I just decided I needed to start seeking out and just watching some of these, not just Werner's films, but more, legendary but obscure films. You have to dig to find them. They're not all available and easy to find just on Netflix or something. Anyways, Werner's legendary for a lot of reasons. If you start digging into his background, you'll quickly find out, or you already know. He is somewhat of an iconic figure. He's a director, a filmmaker. I'm doing this as the first in what will be a loosely based kind of series that I'm calling Heroes. That title's maybe not entirely correct, but I like it, and so I'm going to use it. And this is chapter 1 of this little Heroes series that I'm going to do. They're not going to be in any particular order. There's going to be one right after this about another hero, and then there'll be some more later on, I don't know when. And I might just every now and then throw up a Heroes episode because it struck my fancy. But Werner's definitely a hero. He is an icon. He is someone that I look up to. He's not always someone that I agree with. Sometimes his choices puzzle me, his filmmaking choices. But what I respect about Werner is he makes choices. He is not accidentally making films. His films are authored. Oftentimes his voice is in the film. So he's very directly telling you the story with his own Austrian accent, I feel a kinship with Werner he grew up in remote Austria at the end of World War II, kind of in the tail end of it, and was raised in a very rural environment, no electricity, no indoor plumbing, no modern conveniences at all, and that's how he was raised. And then he kind of grew up and became enamored with cinema and pursued it with everything that he had. I kind of grew up that way too, kind of in the aftermath of the Vietnam War in remote Alaska. Didn't have electricity, didn't have indoor plumbing, no running water, had an outhouse, had to go outside in the snow when it's 40 below to do the business in the middle of winter. Stories were currency when I was a kid, and they were told orally. We read a lot of books. There were piles of National Geographic and Life magazines, and we're always trading books around, and people would come over and we'd sit around a wood stove and share stories. I was always fascinated with cinema, and I grew up and decided to spend my life pursuing it, even before I knew Werner Herzog even existed. What films has he made that are more modern? A real iconic modern film that he made is called Grizzly Man. It was won some awards and things, and it's about Timothy Treadwell, who would go to Alaska in the summers and live with a bunch of grizzly bears or live amongst them, and things didn't turn out so well for Timothy. Let's read a little bit more from Werner. And this book is called Werner Herzog, Conversations with Paul, let's see if we can get this in focus, Paul Cronton. And I like this. The subtitle is Werner Herzog, A Guide for the Perplexed. As if you're perplexed, Werner's going to guide you. I have been reading this. I've had this book for a number of years, and it sits on my nightstand, and sometimes I'll just open it and I'll read a few chapters before bed or when I feel like it. And lately I've been reading quite a bit of it. I still haven't made my way through the whole book, but over the last month while I've been reading this in the evening, I decided I would make this video, and I started bookmarking some of these particularly Herzogian quotes. Let's face it, the world is impossibly risk-averse these days, and panics are almost always completely out of proportion to reality. Yes, sir, I agree with you, Mr. Herzog. It's almost impossible for me to not read this and have Werner's voice in my head. I'm not going to attempt to read this in his accent. It's distinct and geographically specific and amazing. Werner has got such a cool voice that he's gone on to, he's voiced characters on The Simpsons, and in recent years he's done a bit of acting, some Tom Cruise movies. He was in the first season of The Mandalorian as a villain. Epic, epic, epic stuff. Let's continue. Years ago, during the mad cow crisis, it was obvious to me that more people would die crossing the road getting to the butcher than ever would from eating contaminated meat. These days, 6-year-old children have 5 different kinds of helmets. One for roller skating, one for baseball, one for bicycling, one for walking to the garden, one for God knows what. Parents these days even send their children to the sandpit with a helmet. The whole thing is repulsive. I would never trust in a man who has had multiple helmets by the age of 5. Wall-to-wall protection is devastating because children are conditioned not to be intrepid. They will never grow up to become scientists who jump across boundaries into the unknown. And every time I walk past a hand sanitizer, those bottles attached to walls everywhere across America, this is pre-pandemic. These days, I want to tear them down. They are an abomination. I never use antibiotics and have taken maybe 10 aspirin in my entire life. Such things will be the death of us all. A civilization that uses pain relief at every turn is doomed. You can't know what it is to be truly human without experiencing some level of discomfort and physical challenge. When you read in a travel book that the author has taken a snakebite kit on his journey into the jungle, you know the paperback in your hand is fit only for feeding the campfire. Life knows no security. The only certainty is that we all die, despite helmets and life insurance policies. These days, people cut their finger or graze their knee and consider it a life experience. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Herzog. So, yeah, I've been reading this book. I would just encourage you to seek out more info about Mr. Herzog. And why do I consider him a hero? He's such a rogue. He's such an original thinker, and there's so few characters out there that are willing to stand alone, are willing to boldly speak of their convictions and then act them out. You know, it's a complicated world. So many people are cowardly. And Herzog is a hero of mine because of how brave he is, because of how he follows his dreams, his passions, his sort of unconscious desires, his what's the word that is escaping me right now? His sort of deep intuitions and his compulsions and his faint whisperings of a potential of a story. He's willing to follow that to the point of madness. I have nothing but respect for this man. For example, always take the initiative. There's nothing wrong with spending a night in a jail cell if it means getting the shot you need. Send out all your dogs and one might return with prey. Beware of the cliche, never wallow in your troubles. Despair must be kept private and brief. Learn to live with your mistakes. Study the laws and scrutinize contracts. Expand your knowledge and understanding of music and literature, old and modern. Keep your eyes open. That roll of unexposed celluloid you have in your hand might be the last in existence, so do something impressive with it. There is never an excuse not to finish a film. Carry bolt cutters everywhere. Thwart institutional cowardice. Ask for forgiveness, not permission. Take your fate into your own hands. Don't preach on deaf ears. Learn to read the inner essence of a landscape. Ignite the fire within and explore unknown territory. Walk straight ahead, never detour. Learn on the job. Maneuver and mislead, but always deliver. Don't be fearful of rejection. Develop your own voice. Day one is the point of no return. Know how to act alone and in the group. Guard your time carefully. A badge of honor is to fail a film theory class. Chance is the lifeblood of cinema. Guerrilla tactics are best. Take revenge if need be. Get used to the bear behind you. Form clandestine rogue cells everywhere. Yeah, Herzog, he's a hero. So there's a million lectures, like I said, on YouTube. Seek them out. Seek out the films. I recently watched again for the second time a pretty recent Herzog film, Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans, starring Nicolas Cage. So Herzog makes documentaries for sure, But he also makes scripted Hollywood films with big Hollywood actors like Nicolas Cage, like Eva Mendes. Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans is a fever dream. It's freaking amazing. It's Nicolas Cage at his finest. It's such a weird film. He's a Port Authority cop in New Orleans who has injured himself and he's addicted to painkillers and he's just kind of like out of his mind in typical Nicolas Cage fashion. And he's hallucinating and seeing iguanas and he's trying to solve this murder mystery and catch the bad guys and his life's unraveling and he's making very questionable choices, behaving very much not like a good cop. And this film's amazing. Just watch it like tonight. Turn this video off right now and go watch Port of Call, New Orleans Bad Lieutenant. All right, I got time for one more. Writers and filmmakers are all alone. There's usually no one to help you. So just get off your ass and start walking. When you make a film or write a book and roll it out to audiences, be prepared to deal with either kicks to the stomach and slaps to the face or complete indifference. Most of the time, no one cares about what you're doing except you. A filmmaker's existence is different from that of a trained conductor or bank teller. You've made certain choices about your life, which means you need to learn to overcome the despair and loneliness. Stay focused, quiet and professional at all times. Face what comes at you. You can never be irresolute, not for a single second. Plant yourself into the ground and move for no one. Make films only if there's a natural urge within. Switch off your internet connection and get to work. Thank you, Werner. Thank you, Mr. Herzog. That's why Werner Herzog is my hero. He says it like it is. He knows what's important and he calls attention to it. I'm doing this because I am a filmmaker. I'm also a photographer. I've dedicated my life to telling stories, and there's no other path for me. And all these things that he said, yes, I agree wholeheartedly. And if that's your path and that's your life and that's what you do, you will understand and you will know it. Werner is my hero because he provides a spiritual roadmap, and he doesn't mince words. He tells it like it is. If you choose this kind of life, it's not going to be easy, but so be it. Stop complaining. Just get out there and get to work. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you liked this one. We'll see you real soon. Switch off your internet connection and get to work. Switch off your internet connection and get to work. Switch off your internet connection and get to work. Switch off your internet connection